The Voynich manuscript is more than just an old book. It's a Renaissance-era puzzle that has defied the world's brightest minds for over a century. A 15th century codex written in a script that appears nowhere else in human history. It continues to stand as one of the most profound and frustrating mysteries of the modern age. There are mysteries that yield to patience, and then there is the Voynich manuscript, a mystery that does not merely resist solution, but actively mocks the very tools we bring to it. Housed today in a climate-controlled vault at Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, this modestly sized codex has become a kind of secular relic, a book that looks like a key to something immense, yet refuses to turn in any lock we know. To hold the Voynich manuscript, even virtually, is to confront a profound unease. Its pages are filled with a script that appears nowhere else in human history. Its illustrations depict plants that do not grow on any known continent, astronomical diagrams that follow no recognizable celestial logic, and hundreds of naked women bathing in pipes and pools that could be plumbing, alchemical apparatus, or something else entirely. For 6 centuries, this book has traveled through the hands of alchemists, emperors, Jesuits, spies, and scientists, and for 6 centuries it has said nothing, or rather it is spoken in a language we have forgotten we never learned. This essay seeks not merely to recount the history of the Voynich manuscript, but to sit with its silence. What does it mean for a book to be unreadable? Why does its failure to communicate feel less like a defect and more like a challenge? And what might the manuscript's stubborn illegibility teach us about the limits of knowledge, the nature of language, and the strange human need to believe that every cipher must have a key? Part 1. The Physical Object, a book born in fire and ash. Let us begin with the thing itself. The Voynich manuscript is a codex of approximately 240 surviving vellum pages, though it originally contained about 272. Its dimensions are a modest 23.5 by 16.2 centimeters, roughly the size of a trademark paperback, but its weight is symbolic rather than literal. The vellum is calfskin, prepared with care. The hair follicles are still visible in places, a reminder that this object was once alive. The text is written in iron gall ink, a standard medieval formulation that darkens and eats into parchment over time. The illustrations employ mineral and botanical pigments, azurite for blues, verdigris for greens, red ochre for the blood-like accents. In 2009, a team at the University of Arizona conducted radiocarbon dating on 4 separate parchment samples, the results converging on a narrow window, 1404 to 1438. This places the manuscript squarely in the early Italian Renaissance, the era of Brunelleschi's dome, Masaccio's frescoes, and the first stirrings of humanist scholarship. It is a time of transition. Medieval thought is dying, but modern science has not yet been born. Alchemy, astrology, herbal medicine, and cryptography are all jostling for legitimacy. The Voynich manuscript is a perfect artifact of that liminal moment. But the dating raises more questions than answers. The ink and pigments are also period appropriate, ruling out the most obvious hoax theories. This is not a 20th century forgery, it's a genuine 15th century object. Someone in Renaissance Italy, perhaps a single scribe artist, perhaps a small workshop, spent months, possibly years, creating this book. They drew hundreds of intricate illustrations. They filled page after page with a flowing, confident script. And then they disappeared, leaving behind no name, no diary, no marginal note in a known language. The first documentary evidence of the manuscript appears only in the 17th century. In 1639, a Prague alchemist named George Baresch wrote a letter to the Jesuit polymath Arthenius Kircher. enclosing a sample of the strange writing. Baresh described the manuscript as a sphinx that had been taken up space uselessly in his library. He'd tried everything: ciphers, anagrams, invocation of spirits, and had failed. Kircher, who claimed to have deciphered Egyptian hieroglyphs, he had not, promised to help. There's no evidence he ever succeeded. After Baresh's death, the manuscript passed to his friend Johannes Marcus Marci, a physician and rector of Charles University. On August 19, 1666, Marci sent the book to Kircher with a cover letter that remains the single most important provenance document. In it, Marci repeats a rumor that the manuscript had once belonged to Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II, 1552 to 1612, who purchased it for 600 gold ducats, about 4.5 pounds of gold, an immense sum. Rudolph believed the author to be Roger Bacon, the 13th century Franciscan friar and early scientist. But carbon dating has ruled out Bacon, who died in 1292, more than a century before the parchment was made. After Kircher's death, the manuscript vanished into the Jesuit archives for nearly 250 years. It reemerged in 1912, when Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish revolutionary turned antiquarian book dealer, discovered it in a chest at the Jesuit villa Mondagrone in Frascati, Italy. Voynich spent the rest of his life trying to sell it and decipher it. He failed at both. After his death, the manuscript passed to the dealer Hans P. Krauss, who donated it to Yale in 1969. There it sits today, digitized and available to anyone with an internet connection, and still no one can read a single word. Part 2. The 6 Sections. A Tour Through a Broken Mirror. The manuscript is conventionally divided into 6 sections based on its illustrations. Each section is a genre, but each genre is subtly wrong, a familiar category rendered alien. 1. The Herbal Section. This is the largest section, featuring 113 drawings of plants. At first glance, they resemble medieval herbals. Each plant stands alone, with roots, stems, leaves, and flowers rendered in careful detail. But the plants do not exist. Botanists have identified perhaps 2, the wild pansy and the maiden air fern, as plausible. The rest are botanical chimeras: a sunflower with triangular leaves, a cactus that grows in a swamp, a rose whose thorns are actually tiny serpents. Some scholars suggest these are composite drawings, mashing up features of real plants to create a symbolic or alchemical lexicon. Others propose they are purely imaginary, the product of a mind that had seen no living specimens. 2. The Astronomical Section. Here we find circular diagrams of the cosmos, each filled with stars, suns, moons, and zodiac-like symbols. But the zodiac is wrong. The signs are present, but their order is scrambled, and the stars do not match any known constellation. One diagram, the so-called rosette fold-out, depicts a kind of cosmic geography, a central sun surrounded by what appears to be continents, cities, or celestial spheres. It is beautiful and utterly unreadable. 3. The Balneological Section. This is the strangest of all. Hundreds of small, identical nude women, classic nymphs or green girls, float in interconnected pipes and pools. The pipes are colored green, blue, and yellow, and they twist through the pages like a plumbing diagram for a dream. Some scholars see a medical text on hydrotherapy, popular in the Renaissance. Others see alchemical imagery, the nymphs as spirits of mercury or sulfur, the pipes as distillation apparatus. Still others see something more unsettling, a ritual, a fertility cult, or a guide to a pleasure garden that never existed. 4. The Cosmological Section. A series of fold-out diagrams that seem to map a non-Euclidean universe. One page shows a spiral of text around a central sun, with rays that break into droplets. Another shows a circular map of 9 islands connected by lines, each island containing a castle or a tower. The overall impression is of a medieval version of a DMT vision, a coherent alternative reality fully elaborated and then abandoned. 5. The pharmaceutical section. Here the plants return, but now they are accompanied by apothecary jars, labeled containers, and small illustrations of plant parts being processed. The implication is that these are medicinal recipes, but the jars are unlabeled in any known language, and the plants remain unrecognizable. 6. The recipe section. Dense paragraphs of Voynichi's text, each marked with a star-like flower in the margin. These look like recipes, short, structured, repetitive, but without a single word decoded. They could just as easily be magical incantations, financial accounts, or poetry. Part 3. The Unbreakable Code. What the Statistics Tell Us. The text itself, Voynich's, is the heart of the mystery. It is written left to right with no obvious punctuation, though some characters function like spaces. The script contains between 20 and 30 distinct glyphs, depending on how you count ligatures and variations. It is cursive and flowing, suggesting a scribe who is fluent in this writing system, not someone copying symbols from a cipher table. Over the past century, cryptanalysts have subjected Voynich to every known statistical test. The results are maddeningly ambiguous. First, it looks like a real language. The distribution of character frequencies follows Zipf's law. The most common character appears about twice as often as the second most common, 3 times as often as the third, and so on. This pattern holds for every natural language, and for no known random or constructed system. Voynich's also has measurable linguistic entropy, the degree of unpredictability in a sequence that falls within the range of human languages, albeit at the low end. Second, it does not behave like any known language. The most distinctive feature is low entropy within words. In English, if you see the letter Q, you can be nearly certain that U will follow. In Voynich's, the predictability is even stronger, so strong that some researchers have argued the script cannot represent a natural language. The entropy rate of Voynich's is around 2 bits per character, compared to 3 to 4 for English. This means the text is about twice as predictable as a normal language. It's as if every sentence were written in the same grammatical template, with only the nouns swapped out. Third, it is highly repetitive. Certain words appear hundreds of times. The most common word, often transcribed as Dane, appears on almost every page. Short phrases like quokety, quokety repeat with mechanical regularity. This is not how natural language behaves, unless the text is extremely formulaic, like a litany or a ledger. The history of attempted decipherments is a graveyard of brilliant failures. William Friedman, the legendary American cryptanalyst who broke Japan's purple cipher, spent 30 years on the Voynich manuscript and concluded it was probably a hoax, but he could not prove it. John Tiltman, a British codebreaker who cracked German and Russian ciphers in World War II, also failed. Alan Turing reportedly took a look, and his biographer suggests he was stumped. In 2025, a study claimed to show structural convergence with Arabic root morphology, suggesting the underlying language might be a Romanized form of a Semitic tongue. But the study produced no translation, only statistical correlations. Every few years, someone announces a breakthrough. It's a version of Latin with a substitution cipher. It's a proto-Romance language. It's a hoax. It's a secret woman's health manual. It's a transcription of a hallucination. Each claim generates headlines, then fades under peer review. The manuscript has a way of humbling the arrogant. Part 4. The Deep Questions. Why this silence haunts us. Let us now step back from the details and ask the philosophical questions. Why does the Voynich manuscript matter beyond its curiosity value? Why do we care so much about a book we cannot read? The epistemology of the unreadable. A locked box is frustrating because we assume something is inside. The Voynich manuscript is worse. We do not even know if it's a box. It might be a cipher. It might be a constructed language. It might be a glossolalia, a form of speaking in tongues, written down in a trance. It might be a hoax, though the carbon dating argues against that. It might be a book of magic invocations, never meant to be read by ordinary eyes. It might be the private diary of a schizophrenic monk, writing in a language only he understood. Each hypothesis is a story we tell ourselves to fill the silence, but the manuscript does not cooperate. It gives us just enough structure to believe it is meaningful and just enough strangeness to ensure we cannot prove it. The limits of cryptanalysis. The history of code breaking is a history of exploiting redundancy. Every human language has patterns, common letters, predictable sequences, grammatical rules. Ciphers work by hiding those patterns behind substitution or transposition. But if the underlying text has no patterns, if it is random noise, then no cipher can be broken. The Voynich manuscript occupies a terrifying middle ground. It has patterns, but they're not the patterns of any known language. This raises the possibility that the text is meaningless but structured, like a computer-generated text that mimics the statistics of a language without carrying information. This is the nightmare scenario for cryptanalysts, a text that looks like a message, but it is actually an artifact of a process we do not understand. The psychology of the puzzle solver. There's a reason the Voynich manuscript has spawned a subculture of amateur sleuths, conspiracy theorists, and obsessive hobbyists. It offers the promise of a total victory. The first person to read a single sentence will become immortal in the annals of intellectual history. The manuscript is a siren song, and we are all Odysseus, begging to be tied to the mast. But the manuscript is also a mirror. The theories we propose, Latin cipher, woman's health manual, alien transmission, tell us more about our own desires than about the object itself. We want the manuscript to be meaningful because we want the universe to be legible. Its silence threatens that hope. Part 5. The Hoax Hypothesis and Why It Fails. No discussion of the Voynich manuscript is complete without addressing the hoax theory. The idea is simple. Someone in the 15th or early 20th century created the manuscript as an elaborate fraud, intending to sell it to a wealthy collector. The most famous proponent of this view is Gordon Rugg, a computer scientist who demonstrated in 2004 that a simple tool called a Cardan grill, a sheet of cardboard with holes cut in it, could generate text that looked statistically similar to Voynichess. Rugg argued that a medieval hoaxer could have produced the manuscript quickly, without knowing any cipher. The hoax theory is appealing because it resolves the paradox. The manuscript is unreadable because it contains no message, but it has 3 fatal flaws. First, the carbon dating shows the parchment is 15th century. If the manuscript is a hoax, it's a contemporary hoax, made within decades of the parchment's production. That is possible, but it means the hoaxer was working with expensive materials and a huge investment of time. Why create a 240-page fake when a 10-page fake would have sufficed? Second, the statistical pattern are too consistent. A Cardan grill produces text that is random within the holes. Voynichess is not random. It has word-level structure, positional preferences, and even something like grammar. Rugg's demonstration showed a superficial resemblance, not an exact match. Third, the illustrations are too detailed and too integrated with the text. The plants, the nymphs, the cosmic diagrams, these are not doodles. They are careful, deliberate, and in many cases, the text flows around them, suggesting the illustrations came first. A hoaxer who could draw like that and write like that would have had better ways to make money. The hoax hypothesis remains a minority view. Most Voynich researchers accept the manuscript as authentic, a genuine artifact of a lost intellectual tradition, even if they cannot read it. Part 6. The Future. Will we ever know? As of 2026, the Voynich manuscript remains undeciphered, but the tools are improving. Machine learning models that can analyze ancient languages, computational linguistics that can compare Voynichess to hundreds of known scripts, and advances in multispectral imaging that can reveal faded or erased text. All of these offer hope. Yet there is also a sobering possibility. The manuscript may never be deciphered. If the underlying language is a constructed one, known only to its creator, we lack the data for statistical attack. If the text is glossolalia, meaningless but structured, there's no message to find. If the manuscript is a cipher with a lost key, and the key was never written down, then we're left with brute force, and the key space is astronomical. Perhaps the deepest truth of the Voynich manuscript is that it is not a puzzle to be solved, but an experience to be had. To spend time with it, to turn its pages, to trace its glyphs, to stare at its impossible plants, is to enter a state of productive bewilderment. It is the meditation on the limits of human reason. It is a reminder that the past is not a country we can ever fully colonize. It's a love letter from a stranger, written in a language that died with them. And so the manuscript endures. It sits in its vault at Yale, digitized and accessible, waiting for a reader who has yet been born. Every failed decipherment is a kind of prayer. Every new theory is a candle lit in a dark cathedral. The Voynich manuscript does not need to be solved to be valuable. Its value is in its resistance, its beautiful, maddening, eternal refusal to mean what we want it to mean. In the end, the manuscript is not a secret wanting to be revealed. It's a secret that has become a way of life, and perhaps that is the most profound meaning of all. Why the mystery remains. The Voynich manuscript remains a secret for several interlocking reasons. It has no known source language, and its script seems to follow its own unique artificial rules. The text is also highly repetitive and extremely short for a cipher, providing too little data for reliable cryptanalysis. Furthermore, without a known translation for any word, there is no way in to test any hypothesis. Ultimately, the Voynich manuscript is a 600-year-old paradox, a beautifully made, scientifically authenticated book that no one can read. It stands as a powerful reminder that the past still holds secrets beyond our reach. With each failed attempt, it only becomes more famous. Its silence a final, eloquent testament to an author who succeeded in creating a language that would outlive us all.